Good morning, good morning. It is a great day to be on the pier today, and I am Jason Flores, and I am here on the pier with Dr. Chris Haskell, who's a little bit under the weather, but he is going to tough it through, just like these ladies are going to tough it through today on the volcano circuit. Chris, how are you doing this morning?
You know what? I'm not doing too bad. The voice is in and out a little bit. I'm on the road, as you sometimes are, but I am excited for the women on this volcano circuit. As you mentioned, this may be my favorite course of all times. This is a really fun course, and it allows for some different types of folks to get different advantages that they wouldn't normally get maybe on a climb or a super mountain stage. This course, as you're going to explain, is relatively flat-ish, isn't it?
It is, Chris. It does have a couple up and downs, and they're in very strategic spots of the course, but you will find that it is relatively flat, which means this group can keep a very high pace, and as we know on any flat course, watts rule. That means the power that these riders are putting out is going to be very, very important.
So we've got some great riders in this group this morning, Jason, and a lot of the folks who tune in regularly know a lot of these names, but we are seeing this group grow from different areas. We're seeing even more international flair than we've seen historically, but we definitely have some fantastic riders that you know, but I think some names in here that are going to surprise you today. I see some A racers in here that we haven't seen a lot of in the last little bit, but you know who I see in this group that I'm really excited? That's Alice Alexander. She's in this group. She hasn't been in the group for a little bit of time, but it's really nice to see her. And as I look across this group, this is one of those days where she could really get a result. She's been in the top an awful lot. Has she been at the top of the podium? Maybe once. But 22 riders in the group here right now, and Senya Pakala, or as you say, Pakala, you would probably know better than I, also in this group, one of the favorites. Now, when they roll out, Jason, maybe for the first-time viewer, help us understand how this is going to start. Are they just going to take off when this thing drops in 5-10 seconds?
No, actually. Let me jump down into the pen. What you're going to find is when these riders roll, they're actually going to roll at what's called a neutral rollout. A neutral rollout. That means it's going to be a pace that all the riders will be able to group up right behind the beacon here that I'm jumping behind, and they will be able to group up. We need reminders for all those riders to do not chase our lead group up there. So we are going to try to stay with the beacon. But back to what we were talking about is that we will be going out in a neutral rollout, meaning that we will be going with the beacon, Chris. That gives everyone a chance to group up and start this race all together.
Yeah, it does, you know, and it's actually a lot more like a traditional road race or an international world tour road race where they don't let anybody get an unfair advantage at the very start when they blow the whistle and things take off. Now, that's not the same way things happen in your local races. Sometimes they'll blow that whistle in a local crit and it is on. I've always been of the belief that you ought to just let people get clipped in and get started in one of those local races. But here in the ODivaZ race, this Saturday race, this, oh my goodness, maybe one of the longest lasting races in Zwift. Certainly for the women, it is the gold standard, the marquee event for women. But everyone wants to stay here with our leader. But as they roll out, it gives them an opportunity to get legs moving and never get trapped behind some funky move that no one expects. Now, you mentioned that there is a rider on the course that is helping us to keep track of things, and sometimes people try to chase that rider. It looks like they're all kind of coming back together. But for those who are watching, you see our ride leader, Taya Freestead, on the course with that gold chevron spinning over her head. Or at distance, you might see that as a big, bright, beautiful cone. Well, this is an opportunity for her to get further up the course and bring some of these folks back, and she's keeping that nice, steady pace as she does this. Now, a couple quick questions. We've got our commissar on the course. He's getting into when this race is going to start. And what point is that today, Jason, on this course? When does the opening lap truly begin?
So very, very conveniently, this lap will actually start at what we call the lap counter. And every time around, it's essentially the start-finish line as we get into the volcano. But we are going to have a nice big banner that's going to allow us to know when each lap starts and begins, and also when the neutral starts.
Excellent. I apologize for that with my mic settings there. You hear me cough a little bit. We don't need that business. But as we get close here to the to actually making the right turn onto this course, this is one of the more picturesque courses, I think, because you have lava, you have water, you have birds and seagulls, and we hear them in game even right now. Lots of seagulls happening, and normally you only hear those down by the what do you call it? By the pier, by the marina. Now, as we look across this group, there are some names that we clearly recognize. Taya Freestead, who's participated in a lot of great events, is our ride leader. We tend to follow her early on here in the beginning. Alice Alexander, drifting back to her just a few seconds ahead. She may have gotten caught out there. Kessel and Lodge just a little bit further ahead. And Zikala also up there chasing down that folk. What happens in our race here, Jason, if we have people that do not come back by the start?
So what happens is if the riders are not behind the beacon here, they will actually be disqualified. We have watchers on course as well as live riders in the pen here watching the game to make sure that all riders get a fair start with the beacon. So Taya is asking those riders to please slow down, and just a couple riders left up there. I think it's 3, maybe 4, and they are all rolling back appropriately. A lot of these ladies, they've done this race before, and maybe if they are new, they are jumping right out of this gate and kind of going, and I think as we get dialed in, I think we'll be okay as we make this right turn here with Taya onto the volcano circuit.
Yeah, and she's calling them out by name too, which is a good thing to do. Helps people understand, wait, what's going on up here? Yes. And excuse me, it looks like we've got some folks coming back now to that group. But that's the other benefit of a neutral start is you get to get everybody gathered back together. And for the younger riders, the newer riders, those who may not have the same opportunity to get into that lead group and put down the wicked power, you do have the opportunity to ride with this group a little bit longer, feel like you're in the race. I think many of us have been in those drop gate starts and have felt immediately like, what am I even doing here? I just got my trash kicked awful early. But that doesn't happen in a race like this. You get to start and ramp up and put your best effort forward and not get caught out by, as I would describe as silly technicality. As we come under here, Jason, what do people need to know, maybe if they haven't ridden it much, or even if they have ridden it much, that makes this course unique and maybe a little bit more strategic?
I think with this course, because of its how flat it is, riders can really take advantage of the arrow effect. And essentially what that is as riders get behind another rider, they'll be able to reduce the power that they're putting out so that they can save some of that for other efforts like a short climb or trying to make an effort off the front and brake. So as we come into the volcano, it's looking like we are getting close to the start here, and we're going to be passing it on over to the commissioner.
Yes, the commissar is going to have control of this. Now, what will happen next is we'll come out of this little tunnel over here, and outside, actually, a little windy down, and come back down onto the flat part of the course, and then once again up into the caldera, and that's when you'll see that beautiful stone arch created by the early inhabitants of that place, which we believe to be the ancestors of John Mayfield, primitive people, but very vivacious and sometimes angry people. But what we'll find as soon as we come back inside from this space is that it's a long kind of a gradual slog uphill to the start there that flattens out just briefly, but it'll be a test of the legs if there's any kind of pace. I don't think there will be. Taya will hold it, and then the commissioner will make sure that he gets at the start. Now, she says getting close in the chat. Now, this is interesting about this. I know that there are a few people watching. By the way, if you're new to this, or if you're an old hat, jump into the chat on social media. You can see it on Facebook Live and other places as well. And tell us who you think is going to win, who you think is pretty awesome. Don't worry. Jason and I know that we're pretty awesome. No, we mean on the field here. We'll just assume that you put that in first. So who's next? Who else do you think is cool? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, there are so many names here in this lineup that I think both are new and are returning, and I think it's really going to be really exciting race. But before we get started, I wanted to let the viewers know that you can see what the standings are. You just need to head to zwiftpower.com. I'm going to switch over to a screen. It's going to show us the mini map in the top right. It's going to show us where our riders are right now. But in the screen on the top left here, you are going to see live stats. You just need to go up to this corner, hit live, and it will tell you where everyone is on course and tell you what their stats are and their gaps. We'll come back a couple times as we get to the arches, so everyone needs to pay attention. But this screen we're going to use, this nice mini map on the top right and Zwift Power on the left, and headed back to the main race. And Tay is getting ready to release this, but really exciting as far as the names are concerned, Chris, new and returning.
Yes, now we are about 1 kilometer from the start here. This is where the excitement begins. The start here is critical, like it is in every race, but this start especially so. If you are a B rider, categorized as a lower overall watts per kilo, you're still a strong rider, but you may not have the same total wattage output and the same wattage per kilo output, which are important in overall speed, especially as the terrain changes, as the other riders. So what is the strategy for the B rider? And I do want to point out, we've got some beautiful blue jerseys with the purple and light blue stripe in them in the group today. Do you want to specify real quick, Jason, what those jerseys are?
Absolutely, absolutely. To your first question, though, for a B rider, in this first part, as the pace increases, what you'll see, or what you'll want to do, is get those B riders kind of slotted in with that front group, because they can use what I talked about, the aerodynamics or the aero effect here, and they'll be able to hang on to that front group. And that's what we're going to hope to see by those B riders. You're going to need to put a big effort out, but it will dial down and you can stay in there. But the thing about it is when they're in that front group, the A riders aren't really expecting them to take pulls, because they know that they're in the front of the B group. And so definitely a good place to be for those riders. But going back to the kits that you're seeing, a lot of them are matching. You're saying, man, there is a huge team here. But in fact, what it is it's the Zwift Academy, Zwift Women's Academy kit. So these are riders that actually completed the Zwift Academy challenge, essentially, with all the workouts and all the social rides that we had over the last 6.5 weeks. So a really great thing, a really great honor to be able to wear. We've just got 2 riders off the front here. We're gonna pass this on over to our commissioner, and we'll be able to get started here. Let's take a look. So, Tail.
He takes over right now and gives us that official start as we come under the banner. We love to hear these words every Saturday morning. The commissar himself, Pat the Night Train O'Neill, says, we go, we go.
Go, 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 ladies. Go, go, go.
Ah, I need that as a ringtone on my phone, because that's just beautiful to hear. And the ladies get a big start. We do have 2 off the front, but I think they're going to get pulled in pretty dang quick here, Jason. Taya right there at the front. She's got Alice Alexander actually just in front of her, and they're putting down some pretty big watts. There's a small group of 4 right in the front here. It's about to be a 5 spot, and as they're pulling back together. Team Moose in there as well. She's doing a nice job. She's got to stay on that wheel. This is her kind of course. She just needs to jump in there and make sure she's never more than 1 meter or 2 meters off the tail of someone in front of her. Close that gap. You want to get on Taya's wheel. She's going to be there at the finish. You know that. Very good. And they're pulling back together. Little gaps here and there, but it looks like we've got about 10 folks. And they're going to pull back TC and C Laws, who were just a little bit off the front there. Holmichael in that group as well. Zilstra in there as well. Freestead up in that group. Team Moose hanging on. Great job. You're going to want to stay in this group all day. It's going to suck. It's going to pull the wind out of you, but I think you can do it, and you're almost there. Now, Jason, we're broken into 2 groups here. Let's just answer the question, and we'll call this Chapter 1 in the book of duh. But when do they need to close this gap, that little chase group?
That chase group, the time is now. And the time, like I've always said, is always now. If you are under 5 seconds, you need to get your group together and close this gap. It can happen. It is very short. We are almost about to go down into a downhill. And this is the time that group that looks like Nadia Asari is pushing to go. They need to close this gap now before it gets over 5 seconds.
You know what? And I'm a big believer that if the gap is it's starting to grow just a little bit here and no one's coming with you, there's no work, then you sprint. Because the worst thing that's going to happen, well, there could be terrible things you could have. You could fly off the road. But the second worst thing that could happen is that you could make an attempt and not catch on to the group and end up back in the group that you left. But you don't get any benefit from not trying. All you do is you see that other group drift away and you rue the day and wonder what could have been. Well, what could have been for this front group is happening right now. They're in that lead group. Now we have Zylstra just a little bit off the front. Law's up there in that group as well. Taya Freestead just sitting in, doing what she needs to do. Occasionally she'll make a pull to the front. Sarah Holmichael also doing the same thing. Johansson in there as well. Look at this international group. What a great group we have. But as they come down through the caldera here, they are staying in a big group together. We have 1 second to Skidmore off the front. But it is really not a move of note at this point. Not at 1 second, actually. It's back just a little bit more. Laws drifts to the front. Alexander drifts to the front as well. Holmichael, these names that you know. They are just kind of setting this comfortable pace. 3.5 watts per kilo is going to do it for you to stay in this group right now. As they come outside, start to drift downhill a little bit. This is a nice gradual drift down. Looks like they're going to continue to grow this gap, which is about 7 seconds. What is the strategy, or is there even a strategy to bring these other B and C riders, including Kala, who's in that group? I would expect to see her in that front group. What do we need to do to get those folks back in the group? It looks like only 7-8 seconds now.
It's not too far. It's not too far. So at this juncture, what this group is going to want to do, and I'm actually going to jump the camera back, is these riders are going to need to get up the front. So and be able to push the pace. We've got 5 riders in this group that can close this gap of 8 seconds. So what you'll want to do is you want to get onto the front. You'll want to push the pace up another half watt, another 3/4 of a watt per kilogram to let everybody else know. Normally, if we were in a real situation, you would kind of what we call mush, or you'd sled dog this, and you'd say, let's go guys, let's close this gap, get on the pedal, and you'd push people to the front and say, go, 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 good turn, and you'd really try to motivate people. But they're really trying to close this gap, and they're getting close, Chris. They're still about, yeah, they're really putting efforts out here.
No. Skidmore at the back, the A rider, she has just gone stoppage. I saw just a little burst of watts per kilo. I've got to believe that's a mechanical on her machine. She was really close there. She was hanging in that front group off the front just a little bit, and then her watts just instantly went to 0. That tells me that something went wrong in her machine, or maybe she dropped a chain, maybe she popped a tire. All of those things can still happen when you're racing virtually as well, but something stopped her. We saw it briefly. We've got Kala trying to get back on the group. She drifted off the back, the ODivaZ rider wearing that ODivaZ jersey. Now she just jumped back up to the front there. But that is sad news about Skidmore. As we look back on her, no motion yet. She's in the you know what? I don't even think she's in the race anymore. She has stepped away. I certainly don't see her if she's there. But we do have Kala with a big push, a big attack as we come up here. We got to pay attention to that. She's coming up through the caldera. She can see the completion of the first full lap here, and we'll have a sense of a countdown as we come through there. It is unbelievable. Oh, wow. The KOM jersey falls on Alice Alexander, who happened to be having the second best time when someone left the game. But Kala is the one who was off the front. And a moment ago, with now 4 laps to go, she made an attack from the back. Jason, I'm going to describe this and you tell me what happened. She actually drifts off the back. She actually falls 2 seconds behind the group. And then just before the hill, we see her watts ramp up, get into the orange, more than 8 watts per kilo, unbelievably fast, and somehow she slingshots past the group on the climb and gets this huge advantage. What did she do and what happened?
So this is a really cagey move by somebody who knows the course quite well, and what this kind of plays to or speaks to is actually the watts per kilogram, or how much these riders weigh. When a rider is very light but they have a high power output, they're able to kind of really push, especially on the climbs. On the flats, not so much, so there's the opportunity for this group. When they're on the flats, this is where they can chase and get this rider. But on the climbs, what you're going to find is as they hit that bottom, they're going to shoot up, and that is exactly what she used right as she came up. And we're going to see that as we come to the finish. Those riders that know this course, that's going to be the place to chase and to find those riders that are in the break. So really quick, as we kind of move over, I'm going to jump over to the screen for Zwift Power. And if we take a look here, we've got our riders in the bottom right, and we've got some updates here. We've got Zkala in the front there, and then ODivaZ shortly behind. That front group of just 3 riders, 4 riders are now coming all back together. So what that's telling us is that looks like the group is coming back, but they need to chase. They can still see Zkala just out front there, but she is not too far off. I think it's something that they can still chase down.
Well, Connie Laws there on the front, the UK rider, she is the one setting the pace, and she's setting a faster pace than Kala on the front, and we're seeing this start to come back. She does not want to be the one who lets this get away on her watch. Kala now still averaging, here's her voice, here's her name called rather, bumps it up over 5 watts per kilo, but that's not going to last forever. She's just doing her watts as she can here. Now, if you were a rocket, and some of these riders are, you would want to use your fuel at the most opportune time. Yes, you need to create that incredible thrust to get off the ground. Kala did that. Then you need to dial it back a little bit as the atmosphere changes. You need to use just the right amount of thrust, because what will happen is that the potential energy that you had when you left that launch pad will drift away as you use too much fuel. And if you use too much fuel, you're not going to be able to escape the atmosphere. And it looks like gravity in the form of the field is pulling Kala back down. And there may be nothing she can do about it at this point. Even though she's doing 5, 6 watts per kilo, you have this collection of riders with an aerodynamic advantage. ODivaZ on the front there, and they are pulling her back only 3 seconds now. She's like, how is this math working? Kala versus math. You've got a situation where you've got a big group who's pulling together, and they are more aerodynamically, I guess, advantaged than you are as a single rider. Just 3 seconds now, and she is using all her fuel. The concern about the Chinese rider who is in that group is that you're going to use too much too soon. Your 5.5, 5.7 watts per kilo, which still drilling it on the downhill, is not going to be enough. And it looks like, as we see the broad view here, as I see the broad view in my monitor, we see that in between the main group is Laws and Kala. So it is still 7 seconds back to Holmichael, Alexander, Freestead, and that group. Asari as well in that group. But Kala now putting on the afterburner, saying, I've got more rockets here as well. And Laws trying to chase her down. Kala would be smart to take on a companion here at this point. But it looks like Laws is going to get pulled back into that group if she doesn't do something. She's got a big gap here on that group. You can see them. It's the leader Kala, 3 seconds to Laws, then the group, which is coming for them, gunning for them. They've got Taya in that group, and she and Alice in that group are going to be able to control what happens in front of them, as long as they don't let those gaps get too big. So Jason, as we come up and we hit this climb again, are we going to see the same kind of afterburner from Kala?
I think so. Typically, we find her MO for this course is to establish a nice gap, and she stays pretty steady on the power. Sometimes this group is able to kind of bring them back, but she's really got that final sprint. So really, we need to kind of take a look at Laws in that middle gap and what this group of 6 riders are going to do. I think it would make sense for Laws to kind of back off, grab this group, grab the wheels here with the beacon, and really get working to see if they can close that gap. If the gap goes over 20 to 25 seconds, we're looking at that break going, and if they're not able to close that, it is essentially a race for second place.
And it's to me, it's always about the storytelling, right? Isn't it? You've got Kala off the front, you've got Laws in that chase group, where are the heroics here? You know what? If Laws comes back to that group, you're going to be able to pull in Alice Alexander, Taya Freestead, Sarah Holmichael, and Sari, and all of these different strong riders. And what's the story? You know, when you step off the bike and you towel off and you're talking to the friends and the family, what happened today? Oh, I got fifth. Or I was able to work together with 4 other riders and we pulled back the strongest rider in our field today. That is a story worth telling. And that's the one that I think Connie Laws ought to jump in on, Zylstra, Freestead, and the whole collection. That's the one that they're going to want to tell. That gap, though, is 20 seconds to Law, 27 seconds now to Kala up there at the front. So the time is now. We've got 3 laps to go, or coming up on 3 laps to go. No, that is. We've got 3 laps to go here. And that is the opportunity that they have to tell a great story. Or I hung around and was third in the field sprint. Not sure which one they want to play today, but I sure hope it's the first one.
Yeah,
now,
I definitely think that's really, no, I definitely think that's important. We're on board with Connie Law here, and it's looking back at the group, and she's actually distancing the gap. So she's actually got some really high pace. Her heart rates definitely match her output. She's really trying to close. You can see the beacon far, far off there over her right shoulder. She's got her eyes looking forward, and she's almost at Z Kala now. She's 3 seconds away there, Chris. It's going to be a 2-woman break here.
Wow, it is. And she's reeling her back in. This is the time to do it. Boy, I really got to say that for Connie, this is one of those times where you just got to stomp on it and say, I need to do 6, 7 watts per kilo for the next 10 seconds and pull her back, and the ride-ons rain down. You can jump into Zwift at any time, grab those ride-ons and start dropping them on people. Connie Laws would probably like some of those right now. She's wearing her Zwift kit, but her pockets are already full, which is always cool to see. Now, 3 seconds still to Kala. Kala's just not being nice about it. She looked back and just insulted her mother and kicked a puppy and said, yeah, you're not coming with me. 3 seconds is just not even something that should be an issue to pull back. But Connie is unable to do it, even though she's doing 5 watts per kilo, because Kala keeps picking it up to 5.5. It's like insult to injury. I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe they're friends in real life and they just want to, you know, give each other a little bit of grief, or maybe there's some bad blood, Jason, here on a Saturday morning between Laws and Kala. Which could it be?
So, I guess speaking to that, what I think is happening is this gap is, the power is pretty high here, Chris, and we're above 5.0 watts per kilogram, and the thing is, it becomes the unknown. Z Kala has been here a lot of times, and Connie Laws has got some really fresh legs. We haven't seen her maybe in just 1 or 2 races before, so she doesn't really know how strong Z Kala is. So really, she's trying to figure out and kind of feel out, can I close this gap? And she may just be kind of dangling out there. If she's feeling comfortable, Chris, she can just leave her out there and make her work if she's in a comfortable spot, right? And not in a spot of bother at all.
Well, but here's the deal, Jason. If she gets on her wheel, she can do almost a full watt per kilo less, right? She can do less work, reserve more, get more, and respond to these Kala pushes that she's got. She just needs to pull back those 2 seconds, and she sees them. Laws, if you can hear me, stomp on those pedals, dig that back, and then sit on that wheel. Like, get your mail on that wheel. Send in a change of address form. You're no longer at 21 Jump Street. You are straight at Z Kala Lane, 1 Z Kala Lane, and that's where you get all your stuff. Amazon Prime will deliver in 2 days. You can get some nice little packages in there, but get on that wheel, make that your residence, and do not move. Do not allow Kala to evict you from that beautiful spot. And she does. Laws pulls her back, sitting on Kala's wheel now, well, drifts by her right there, maybe to say, hey, I'm pretty cool. Also, don't do it. I'm just saying, sit on that wheel. That's the powerful wheel. And if anybody knows about wheel sitting, it's me. I could write a book, probably, Jason. I probably should write a book called, 100 Miles Without Seeing Anything But Your Spokes.
Yeah, and you could probably write that book while you're on the bike, Chris. That would be impressive.
If I'm on someone's wheel, I most certainly could. I could put a little laptop rack right there and just sit and type. I often do some diary entries. Dear diary, I'm sitting on someone's wheel again. Usually Eric Denning. Tall people. I like riding behind tall people and wide people. And unfortunately, he's not wide enough. But there's a guy who races locally here. He's about 240, about 6'4", and I've established residence in that draft. It's pretty fabulous.
You know, Chris, it's a really good time. Have you ever heard of mental consulting? About
mental consulting
or mental training for endurance races. Have you ever heard of that?
Boy, my goodness, no. I haven't. I can think of lots of things to besmirch it, but I won't do that until after you say it.
That would
Tell
be great.
Tell us more about mental training.
So there's been this new trend, and a lot of these women have been involved in what's called the Endurance Lab by TeamODZ. And there's this coach named Nate Last, and he talks about separating your physical training and your endurance training into both physical and mental training. And some of the things that he's been teaching these ladies, as well as the men in the Open Endurance Lab, is about things like focusing on their breath, focusing on the outcome, and focusing on the now. So this is a really good time, just because this group is trying to find out where their comfort is and where they're at, and they need to kind of pull from deep within, you know, belly breath, lowering their shoulders, you know, making sure their arms are relaxed and that they're breathing deep. And these are these mental tricks that these riders can actually use and try to push themselves forward and get themselves back into the game. This gap is a minute out there. So at this point, this group, this 6, is essentially racing against each other for this 3rd place spot on the podium. And so the person who makes it to this front is going to be on the box. So they've got to dig deep. And this is this new trend of training that you can look at, and essentially mental consulting that allow you to focus on these things and train these things while in training. So when you're in the heat of battle, like we are, as Stephanie Hallmichael makes it to the front, she knows that her legs can take this and she can continue on and rotate and put power out. Have you ever done anything like that, Chris?
You know what? Sometimes I do my own mental consulting. I consult myself, but usually it's not to the same level of performance. Often I'll ask myself, why are you doing this? Do you know that this pain can stop immediately? Do you know you're breathing too hard? And then I try to back off a little bit, usually listening to my own mental consulting, and then I find it gets much, much easier. Now, my race results are not strong, but I am quite relaxed and can have that, you know, that little beverage on the bike, a little mixed drink with an umbrella in it, if you will, while I ride, and that's good. And you know what? I've done my own mental consulting, Jason. I have I've said to the person who's sitting in front of me going really hard, hey, do you want to go this hard? Maybe we should back it off a little bit. Or to the other people in the group. True story, Jason, and to the folks who are listening here. I was in a race a few years ago, a really big local regional stage race, and we got separated off the back because of a really dumb feed zone crash. No, we didn't crash, but it happened in front of us, and you hit brakes, and then people panic, and then you go really hard, and there was a split. And we found ourselves off the back, and we rode and caught some people who were in between us and the chase, and eventually, after about an hour, and this is a long race, I think it was 78 miles in this race, we found ourselves at the approaching on a really hot day the base of this climb. By the way, they have 2 laps to go here, which is really curious and interesting. But we found ourselves so far off the back and to a place called Catherine Creek. And I just kind of did my own mental consulting to the person next to me and said, how do you feel about getting off the bikes and laying down in the creek for a minute? It was like 95 degrees that day. And we're in the middle of a stage race. And he goes, are you serious? I'm like, I'm 100% serious. And so we knew that we were already off the back and that the gap was growing and that 5 minutes wouldn't make that much of a difference in our overall standing. We knew it was the first stage. We weren't going to climb up the standings any further. So we stopped. We hopped off our bikes. We leaned them against the bridge, ran down the bank, laid flat in that cold mountain spring, that creek, rejuvenated ourselves, jumped back on the bikes, and that little 4 or 5 minute break actually powered us through the rest of it. We caught a bunch of people who climbed up in the standings. There you go. Chris Haskell, mental consulting. Get off the bike, get in the creek. True story.
Wow. Now that sounds like some fun. So we are actually jumping back in this main race. We still have the 6 riders on board here. Zwift Power is showing this group all together with the 2 riders over a minute and a half, Chris, in front of this group. But that looks like they're working well together. We'll have to see who kind of dodges who up there, or if they're just kind of throwing stakes at each other's spokes, because they're putting about above 4.0 watts per kilogram up there, Chris. They're really slugging it out.
Yeah, they are. And you know, here's what's interesting is they are not really staying on each other's wheels. Kala drifts back a little bit, puts probably 3-4 bike lengths in there sometimes. With Laws just kind of staying steady at that 5.1. I don't think you were wrong at all when you suggested that she might just be in her sweet spot as Connie finds that 5.1 watts per kilo. Her heart rate is plenty high at 183 right now. That is some work right there. But there's still a full lap of this course left. Now, as they hit this hill here, Kala just kind of sitting in there, doing that watt per kilo less on average than her counterpart. She ramps it up a little bit here, but not too much. And really just kind of sitting in that draft, doing a little bit less, probably saving up for the big fireworks. And she's attacked on this little hill, riser, many, many times in the past to great effect. Connie sitting maybe too much on the front, probably someone very comfortable with time trial. I would imagine that that's the case here. Anybody who can sit in that terribly uncomfortable zone for this long, I have to believe, has some triathlete experience or some time trial experience or self-flagellation and other masochistic techniques, because I think they're all wrapped up into the same terrible thing. I don't necessarily have success in time trials because of the aforementioned aversion to discomfort and pain. But as they come under this banner one more time, the arch, we're going to see that 2 change to a 1. And these two are going to try to make some cool things happen. Wow, there it is. We love the bell. 5:38 was the new PR set by Kala on this course. 5:38 in one of these laps, Jason. How fast is that?
That is amazing, and that ranks in the top of even the men's, that would be in the men's lineup as well. It would actually be pretty quick even on that end. As the chase group here comes up the hill, they're going to try to see, and we can see what times as their compares going around, and we can see how much off that is, but that time is just amazing.
You know, and I bet we're going to see some good numbers in that chase group too. When they come in, they're trailing by about 2 minutes here. TC has decided she's going to do something about this. You'll notice she's made an effort to try to get across that gap a little bit more. Actually, is she a lap rider at this point?
She is. She's a rider that they're coming around, yeah.
I was going to tell a grand story about how TC, reached into a reservoir of discomfort, and then she was at 2.9. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, she could still beat me. All of these riders have a much higher FTH than most other riders. Do you follow FTH in addition to FTP and some of those other ones, Jason?
So what? Tell me, Chris, this new thing, because there's a lot of new ways of understanding our metrics. As you know, we've been online. There's been a lot of fire, but maybe we could start this new thing. Tell me about FTH, Chris.
FTH is your measurement described as faster than Haskell, and it just has 2 conditions. It has 0 and 1, and all of these riders have an FTH of 1. They are faster than Haskell, and that is really not that much of an accomplishment right about now. But even Hoffel and TC, who's about to be incorporated into that group, really smart to jump on with Michael and Alice Alexander and those folks as well. But all of these riders have a very strong FTH this morning.
Absolutely. We're just coming out. Did we get our time as we came through, or are they just about to come up that last riser?
I think they're about to come up that last riser. Nope, they're actually out already. Now, it doesn't look like they, any of them got a big improvement on that.
And I think that just speaks to how steady they're riding. All these riders are still pretty on the high end as far as effort's concerned. Their heart rates are close to being pegged, but they know that gap isn't going to come down. So now it's time to figure out, who can I beat in this group? Who can I out sprint? Who can I out break? And how early do I want to go on this final lap here, Chris?
Yeah, no kidding. And Kala just sitting in the back there. As that gap continues to grow to the chase group, she knows she's in great position. This is great strategery right now. It is like watching a chess match. I realize that it may not be the best spectator sport, a chess match, but you should know here, ladies and gentlemen, that what Kala is doing here is very, very smart. Here's my question to you, Coach. You've got Laws on the front here. She's kind of going to be dictated to by Kala if she's not careful. Now, she's doing her thing. As we've established, we think she might be a time trialist here, doing great work. But how is she going to eliminate the threat of Kala and run away and win this?
So with Laws, she's going to need to go as early as possible because we know how spiky or how jumpy Z Kala is on her sprint, and you see her just line up right behind Laws. She's making sure that she uses that wheel until the moment that kicker comes by, and she's gonna go blast off. So the Laws is hoping, I'm hoping, that she puts it down, and she's at 5.3, so she's trying to make sure that there's a gap between her and Kala and that she's putting an effort out. So hopefully that'll numb the legs, dull the legs for the sprint so that they have a chance to kind of finish this together. And that's what I would be telling riders. If you see a rider off the front, you know that they're tired, and just make them suffer so that they have nothing left in the line.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to make a prediction here. I think Kala has tried this many, many times. She's going to use this little bit of a gap that she has. She's going to ramp up to an obscenely high watts per kilo here in just a minute so that she can slingshot back and eliminate the possibility of Laws even catching her wheel, creating a much bigger gap otherwise. But she's got to just do that suddenly. And look, there she goes. 10 watts per kilo digging by her, and the gap already starts to grow. She can't respond. Laws trying to dig in, but there's already 1 second, 2 seconds now as she comes up and over 11 watts per kilo. She's putting everything into that climb when the watts matter the most. And she's going to come to that line. There's no chance at this point with 6 seconds, 7 seconds back to Laws. There's no chance she's going to get this, is there, Jason?
No, we've seen this plenty of times from Z Kala, power watt wise, and really putting a lot on this finish jump. And she's about to sit down, but she is pegged. You know, we're looking at her BPM being over 185. We're at 183 beats per minute. She's putting everything she's got into this here, and she's about to come under the banner, and she takes the first place spot here with us, Chris.
Yeah, she is. That is impressive work there. She is doing. Her SSDD is really, really high. You familiar with that one as well?
No, tell me about it, Chris. There's all these new terms.
Goodness. Yes, same story, different day. As Kala delivers the thing that she is well known for delivering here. We've got this chase group though, where the really interesting things are happening. Now, in this group, as they're out on the flat, they're going to hit this climb in just a second. And sorry, Rays, Taya Freestead, Alice Alexander, Zylstra, also in that group. Looks like that is the group that is going to have success here. Who do you think is the best sprinter in this group, and when the heck are they going to go?
You know, I was listening a lot to the Endurance Lab talks on Facebook, and Stephanie Hallmichael has really been dialing in and tuning her sprint. I think she's ready to go on this one. So I think if she's smart, she's going to stay about fourth wheel in this group, and she's going to launch it not at the jump, not at the bump where we go up, but if she is on it, she's actually going to launch it as they come up onto the flat, because everyone's going to be real tired as they roll up. This group has stayed together. They know that the pace and their efforts are pretty about matched as far as how strong they are. So she's going to want to launch that right as we go flat, as we get to the top here. So we'll see if that goes.
No kidding. The windows have closed. No more bets being taken, because these horses are on the track and they are coming around the final pylon. About 20 furlongs to go here. This is really, really close here. So you're taking and shaking your paper your receipts in your hand, and if you've got Freestead or Holmichael or Alexander, you have got a favorite here. But if you've got an Ansari, you may have an underdog or a race. But we'll see what happens here. It's Ansari on the front, digging it up to 8.0. She's got a little bit of a gap, but there's the aerodynamic effect here that you're going to have to move if you're going to come around. It looks like they're probably going to let her have it. Oh, no, Holmichael comes around at the end and gets her. Taya Freestead also does a great job. It looked to me like Alice, Freestead, and Holmichael. Boom, boom, boom. Right there. Alice Alexander with a really strong dig in the last 50 meters. Freestead does the same thing, and it looks to me, as I had a great angle as they came across, it looked to be Alexander, right, Freestead, and Holmichael. Now, my trifecta, is it right? did I get it right, Jason? You can see the results.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. So we got it rolled. We've got the roll up as first place being Zikala, second place being Connie Laws. The results, preliminary results, are showing here as Alex Alexander coming by 0.1 before Taya Friedstedt, followed by another 0.1 to Stephanie Holmichael. And then we're still waiting for the update of where Nadia Asari is going to get slotted in. We're still waiting for the computers to kind of show us where we're at there, and then where that gets loaded. And it should come up. After that, we have was it Aaron Reese and then Zeltra there in an 8th place. So we've got our 8th place rider already pulled up through the course here. So really great race today, Chris.
Oh, it's always a great race on this beautiful Saturday morning. And if you've got your tickets in hand, this is going to pay out really big. Actually, there's no betting on these races, so I'm sorry. But if you were betting on these races, you'd know who to bet on, because we've got some fabulous racers that come out every week. You know their names, and you probably have even taken grief from your friends as you're sitting in the car or sitting at home, your family saying, "What are you watching?" That's right. I'm watching a virtual bike race, because these amazing athletes are wonderful personalities. As you know, you're starting to see lots more, because the community really appreciates people like Sarah, people like Taya and Alice, and gets them in front of people live from time to time. Some things happened back at the CBR Paris. Other cool things like this event also highlight the great things that they do. This is what's exciting, I think, about the virtual bike racing that's happening here. We're compelled by any meaningful and interesting story in sport, and we want to see it through to its conclusion. Today's conclusion was that Kala is as cagey as we thought she was. SSDD. Similar story, different day, right?
Absolutely.
She delivered what she always delivers, which is an exciting performance, and we got to thank her for that. But the news story is, who is this newcomer who managed to hang on from the UK? She not only bridged up solo, but she managed to stay with her all the way to the very end. When she started throwing those big haymakers at the end, maybe not enough left in the legs for somebody who's more of a time trial type of person. But it was really nice to see Connie Laws in that group as well. Great performance from her today. Kudos all around. But then in that chase group, never disappoints. Alexander, Friested, just to name a few of those well-known riders in that group, and of course Sarah Holmichael, who we've been calling, Jason, since the beginning. I believe she was in that first race that we called together, the Canadian Sarah Holmichael. Sorry, U.S.
Yeah, I think so too, Chris. She's definitely a landmark here. She's been a great rider. She's come a long way. She's done the FTP Challenge. She's gone through the Endurance Lab. She's looking to get into the Women's Endurance Lab. And all these are great programs put together by some great coaches that really tune and bring those FTPs and those FTHs so that you can come and perform an SSD anytime you want. How about that?
Absolutely. You can perform an SSD anytime you like. That's a very good point. And I will mention this about Sarah as well. She's a philanthropist. She's given, over $11 million to different animal homeless shelters. And she's just a great person. She gave both her kidneys, which is amazing. It's an impossible thing to do. I realize, because a person can't live without a kidney, but Sarah can, because she's powered and evidently her blood filtered by love, which is good. Team Moose had a great performance today by hanging in that group as long as she did. I think she ended up getting separated when that attack came at the very beginning. Oh, not at the very beginning, excuse me. When we hit that climb proper for the first time and things got crazy, off the heezy, as the kids say. And that's when Moose got separated, but she was strong and in that group for a long time, which was very cool to see. Great performance from her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to see him climb up.
Yeah, totally. We've seen Connie come up the ranks, and she actually finished top 10 today, Chris. So looking kind of as an overview of the race.
Shut the front door. She came in top 10, Team Moose?
Yeah, Connie's been doing great, and taking a bit.
I have to get a tattoo now. I told her I would get a tattoo if she ever finished top 10, and
it would say it would say TeamODZ, and I think so. So looking kind of an overview of this whole race, we had a really big pack front. We had Z Kala kind of go off the front, and C-Laws really closed that gap. We didn't think she was going to close the gap, but she found that spot. She found that discomfort. She dug down deep. She probably has gone to Mental Grit Consulting, and she knew what mental tricks she needed to get up there and to get up to Z Kala, and she made that chase group happen. But we had our break with those two riders, and then we had the chase group really working well together. And as they came up over that last finish, man, did they really see some fireworks. We had a great finish today. So looking forward, Chris, what do we have going on moving forward in the next months?
Well, we've got a few things going on. One, I'm going to continue to besmirch the process and show up as often as I can in events like this. Our calendar is one of those things that's relatively easy to find if you jump onto the different sources. I like to go to TeamODZ.com and to ZwiftLive.com. But where do you like to go to find these details of what's coming up?
Those are definitely great places, Chris. Of course, Zwift.com/events has all our events that are in the module. We have some great, they have some great things coming up. We have had a great opportunity to try group workouts, and we did one this week with about 65 riders of a custom workout built by a certified coach here at TeamODZ. So it's
that
definitely
doesn't even sound legal, Jason.
It
doesn't. But go ahead.
It doesn't.
I'll check on the legality.
It doesn't. But that is another great place to take a look at some things coming up. And then future races, we're looking at our Wednesday women's race, as well as every other Saturday, the first and the third Saturday for this ODivaZ race. And as the Women's Endurance Lab is getting dialed in, and you are going to see some ladies really bump up over this next 4 weeks, as well as with Team Worlds coming up, Chris, it's going to be a very exciting time to see all these racers kind of peak out for this Thanksgiving race.
Yes, so before we say goodbye, tell them a little bit more about this Wednesday women's race.
So this is actually a midday race focused for riders that are in the Australian time zone that allows it to be a little bit more friendly to their time. So this one is more friendly to US riders on the early morning stage, but for them it would be a more favorable time for those Aussie riders out there that want to race, those ladies.
And what time is it local Aussie time? I realize it's a large continental mass, but roughly what time of day is it for them?
I believe it's I believe it's early evening from what I understand.
Okay, and for the US folks, what time is midday for US folks?
It's about 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? There are a lot of our folks who will have the opportunity to participate in that. Is there a broadcast plan for this event?
There isn't at this time, but there is plans to do so if we have some bandwidth in order to appropriate. That would require us moving to Australia to be in that time zone at some point, but that could happen, like they say.
You know what? And you and I will have to go back and forth on these times, but I think there's an opportunity that one of us at least may be able to cover this race, at least in its inception, to make sure that people are able to watch that event and do this thing. My schedule may just allow me to do that, depending on specifically what time on Wednesdays that will be for us. So this is really exciting.
Okay, so really quick before we go, just a quick thank you to everybody everybody online in social media. Stephen Shen, Beth York, Eric Denning, Megan Herzog, who's actually doing a workout at this time. Everyone else, Kristen Green, everybody with the great comments to ODivaZ, to PTZ, BJ Alfonso, who was at the PTZ party last night for celebrating Siri and her acceptance to Zwift Academy for the next part of it, Kristen Cotronis, and everybody else out there. Thank you for joining us today. This is Jason Flores and Chris Haskell saying have a good day, and we will see you in 2 weeks, all my friends.
See you later.